Happy Halloween, all my fellow Chibits. Today is that day of the year to where you can sit down and watch gory, violent series and not be questioned why you're watching something so horrific. So, today, I am going to be reviewing Terra Formars Uncensored Episode 6. So, before I get into the real review, I want to talk about something. I actually went back and watched the first 3 episodes that were actually uncensored on Crunchyroll, and I got a good look at it and got to see exactly what was going on with those episodes. For the most part, I actually will clap. Besides the obvious, skipping the beginning part, as I already covered in my earlier reviews of, the backstories and character development of the characters from Bugs 2, the overall adaptation of Terra Formars is actually pretty damn good. It's not the best, but it's pretty damn good. And for the one thing I will say, thank God they did not censor Censors, like some anime I know of, you know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, the Censors. One thing I will say, if they will censor it like that, and at the very fucking least, they will keep the gore like they did what I saw in those 3 episodes, I am fine with it. Shit. The freaking spine scene, oh, that was the one scene I was so pissed off about when I watched the episodes of Terra Formars when it was censored. When I saw that head spine coming out of the freaking body, that was one of the most famous scenes from Terra Formars, and when that was censored, I was done. But I'm thankful, I'm so fucking thankful that the anime community has a large voice, and Crunchyroll decided to get us uncensored Terra Formars. Now, for the most part, it's still slightly censored, but it's not that bad. I want to be honest, the censors are less obvious. And so, I'm not even going to go into that, because, for the most part, I'm fucking happy. I mean, they showed me my spinal detachment scene from the body, and so I'm fucking happy. Okay, now that I'm getting past all the censors part, let's talk about this week's episode. So, this week's episode of Terra Formars, a very fitting episode for any, Halloween fan, anyone that wants to celebrate Halloween, because we get a little bit of violence, gore, and we get an awesome fucking fight in this episode. I actually want to get into that. This series not being uncensored is pretty damn enjoyable watching an anime format, especially when you don't see black bars covering the entire screen. And so, to see how the fights are actually animated properly, I am actually amazed by Terra Formars. I really am. It's not that bad. The only thing I could say, though, is just the overall art style they use for this series. But I'm not even going to get into that because that's just subjective if I like the art style or not. But for the most part, the episode, the fights, and the progression were pretty damn good, and I like what they did with the narrator. They made it really easy to follow with the narrator, so I don't feel like there was much of an issue with that in this episode. For instance, with the narrator explaining about the diving beetle, to, having Michelle breaking the freaking diving beetle roach's legs, to the entire bit when you get to see the fight and action, all that, of how the plan of Akari was just pulling up Michelle out of the water. Just everything was really good. It was handled properly in this episode, and I think it was adapted properly for the most part when it comes to my memory. Now, what this episode really does, it has a lot of setup points I noticed about it. For one thing, you see at the end of this episode where the Russians are currently stating, like, we need to stop Rehab's legacy. Hopefully I said that right. But either way, you have it to where the Russians are saying that. So, a big mystery just got popped up with that entire bit with this episode, along with a lot of build-up and mystery around the Bugs 2. For instance, in this episode, we find out that members from Bugs 2, the previous, Bugs project that went to Mars, a bunch of the people that died and had, the powers to transform into some form of bugs, they are being experimented on. Like some roaches, or one specific roach in the past, found the corpses and was using corpses as experiments to give these, roaches powers, as we could see in this episode. It was clear as day, and I thought that was a really cool little twist they did with this episode, and they explained it pretty good. I mean, it was understandable, the way they did with the screen when you saw the fucking roach dude, like the roach beating on the corpses, ripping the bodies and corpses of humans apart to try to give roaches certain abilities, like, for instance, the grasshopper type roach, or the diving beetle type roach. It definitely changed the overall ball game of future situations, because, I mean, we know about the regular roaches, the powerful regular roaches that were just dominating all the humans and wiping them out, kicking their fucking ass in the first 3 episodes. Well, now that we know that certain roaches have actually powers, like specific other powers, like from different bugs inside of them from Bugs 2, it's a terrifying aspect because you don't know what is coming. And honestly, I'm wondering if the animation studio, or the studio that's currently making this series, did that on purpose. Like, for instance, the reason why they chose not to adapt Bugs 2's arc, and they decided to actually put it in OVA form, I wonder the reason why they decided to go past that was because they wanted to leave a lot of mysteries behind the powers that the roaches will have. I wonder exactly if that's the reason why they decided to do that. But either way, the episode, for the most part, a very decent episode. I have no problems with it, honestly, for the most part. And I would give this episode an 8 out of 10. It was a damn enjoyable episode, a lot better than the beginning start, my first impressions of the anime. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. How'd you feel about this week's episode of Terra Formars? Do you want more reviews on this series? Let me know in the comments below. I'll try to review it constantly if they continue with the uncensored version. So you all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.